to Around the Aether Cooler, here live from my very own Rakdos dungeon. So if you hear a little echoing, it's not because I just moved and my basement's literally filled with nothing right now, but actually because we went to Ravnica a little bit early. Joining the Aether Hub guild around the Aether Cooler tonight is a full roster. We got Mike from Mythic Tales, aka editor of the channel, and handy control player, Nitza, our resident limited master, and of course, the always awesome Nicole. The cake is not a lie, Bad Wolf MTG. How are you guys doing tonight?
Good.
Good.
Yeah, great. Thanks for joining, guys. So it's been a while since we've all been on at the same time. We've got lots to discuss. Topics tonight include Magic Core 19 pre-release experiences, talking limited, play with Nitza, giving us his initial impressions of the set. Then we'll go over to MTG Arena talk, discussing the various new changes and our thoughts on how to better the card gathering system itself. It's going to be a pretty interesting conversation. And then going into a more controversial topic, I'm sure you guys are going to love this, discussing exclusive cards in MTG and how they could affect the game. And as always, we're going to round the podcast off with Nicole's community channel spotlight pick, exposing you guys to another great content creator out there in the multiverse. So sounds great, right, guys?
Yeah.
Let's go.
Let's do this.
Okay, so let's begin with talking about pre-releases. So I know a couple of us couldn't make to their pre-releases, but I think we all have some experience with M19 so far, right? Right, guys?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. So I only went to one night of my LGS's pre-release. Personally, did not do very well, and that's mostly because I didn't watch Nitzahone's pre-release guide or his entire set review, so that's probably why I did so poorly.
Probably.
Exactly. He's seriously, guys, like I used to watch, like I did up until M19 watch every single one of his primers basically to get ready for my pre-releases, and I have always pulled out pretty well, almost directly as a result of his videos. So go ahead and watch them. They can really help you out. But in all, I actually tried to go dragons with my lot of cards. And it didn't turn out very well. Like, I just had too many big things and just not enough to stop the quicker decks that I was playing against. So, kind of lackluster performance on my side.
What was your big dragon payoffs, or?
So, I didn't have dragon payoffs per se. I just had dragons.
Oh, which ones?
So, I remember I got... what was it called? So, I got... Volcanic Dragon, which is not like super awesome, but I thought it was like, it's a pretty big guy that can get in there.
It's pretty good.
It's hasty too.
Yeah, it's really nice. It's I thought it was going to do more than what it did, but mostly because I only got it one time. But that's beside the point. But I mostly went red because I got a lightning strike, so I was like, hey, it's good removal right out the gate. So I thought it was fine. I really didn't. I just got a bunch of like really bad creatures. So I did get a Goblin Trash Master. He wasn't very good.
Yeah, can't imagine if you don't have enough. You have to have that critical mass of goblins to make those kind of lords function.
Yeah. I mean,
he's a 4-mana 3/3 that can sacrifice and destroy an artifact. Like, he's not great, but I think he makes the cut sometimes if you're in a red deck, just because he has some utility, at least. He's definitely a sideboard card, at least.
Yeah, I didn't think about him as just a straight-up destroy artifact spell, but that's actually
he can do that all on his own, so...
Yeah. So I never got to actually pull that off. My opponents just never had an artifact when I actually got him in play. But I mean, I got like, your random, Boggart Brutes and Viashino Pyromancers, stuff like that. I didn't get as much removal as I wanted. Like, I basically just had... Electrify, and then of course my what was I thinking?
Lightning Strike.
Lightning Strike, that's it. Wow, I'm just like losing it, aren't I? So yeah, it turned out like I just didn't have as much removal as I intended when I went in my pool, but oh well.
All right, what did you end up playing, Nicole?
I got to go to 2 pre-releases. I did a midnight one and then noon on the next day. which was totally a great idea, not a bad idea at all. And I watched all of Nitza's videos beforehand, and I was pretty happy with how I did. I at least knew, I had a general idea of what cards I should be playing and what cards I shouldn't be playing, so that was pretty important. But I opened up Vivian and a, what's the white, explode everything.
Cleansing Nova.
Cleansing Nova. So I had those, and I went green-white, my green-white enchantments the first time, but that didn't work out really well, so I ended up in black-blue, and more of a grindy deck kind of sort of thing, but I had a Death Baron that I got to use a couple times.
Nice.
And I ended up going 2-2 on that one, so I was pretty excited about that. And
Did you have a Skeleton Archer with your Death Baron?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah,
so
that's
good.
disgusting.
So good.
I want to do that at some point. I haven't yet, so I'm jealous.
Yeah. Oh, because it gets the death touch, doesn't it?
Yeah, so it just becomes 4 mana, 3/3, destroy target creature.
Better
It's
cheap than
great.
Ibre. That's awesome.
Yes. So, yeah, that was the first night. And then the next day, I got Lathless, the Dragon Queen, for my promo. And
Oh, wow.
Oh, and then I had like a Volcanic Dragon. I had the Spark Tongue Dragon, I think it was. And then there was the one that Demanding Dragon. That one is amazing.
Yeah, Demanding Dragons. Yeah.
It was great. I play dragons. And I think white for removal, but I got to play dragons, and it was wonderful. And I went 2-2 again, but that's okay. I was playing dragons. I was happy.
That's the great thing about pre-release. Like, it's just so much easier to relax, and kick back a little bit with it, and not worry about your record so much, and just build a fun deck.
Yeah.
Unless you just get totally screwed, which can
and this format has a weird number of rares that are there for constructed purposes that are just god awful and limited, like Isolate and the amulet thing that gives -1/-0 to all tokens. And
useless.
You could conceivably open a pool where you have like 3 of those garbage, useless rares, and that could really hurt you when other people are opening Demanding Dragons and stuff.
Yeah, I actually did open an Amulet of Safekeeping. That's the artifact that you were talking about.
Yeah.
And I was actually tempted to put it in just because I was like,
I could see you might cite it in like incredibly rarely, like if you're going up against someone who has Tezzeret, because it makes Thopter tokens, it blanks them all. Or, they have Tezzeret and they have like multiple other ways of making tokens. Tezzeret alone isn't quite enough, I don't think. But it's hard. It's hard for it to do anything most games, unfortunately. People don't target you with stuff very often in Limited. I mean, you're going to make their Lava Axe cost 6, but, whatever.
right.
Yeah, it's definitely a Storm, safety valve, which, they printed so many of them lately, it seems so odd.
This one gives a middle finger, though, to the actual storming and the goblin tokens from Empty the Warren, so it's kind of cool for that.
That's true, yeah.
Why does it feel like Wizards just hates tokens right now?
I don't know. Yeah, it does kind of seem that way.
I mean, just stuff like whirling, Chain Whirler, and Amulet of the Safe, like Amulet of Safekeeping, like.
There's also the new Mare that gives -1/-1 to all of your opponent's creatures.
Yeah. I was talking to my brother about this the other day. We just started listing off things that are just hating on token decks, and I don't know.
Yeah,
they could be pretty powerful, like, and they were before Chain Whirler, like the artifact for the white god that makes 1/1 soldier tokens or whatever every time you play a white creature. What's that called?
Oketra's Monument.
That's it. Yeah. So like that, was a legit deck, but then they printed Goblin Chain Whirler.
And Anointed Procession was just nasty too. When you got multiple.
For a while, tokens were around, and I think that's maybe why they did it. They were like, in playtesting, they realized how good tokens could be, and maybe they went a little too far in smothering them, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, because Anointer Priest had a really nasty loop that it could get into. When you embalmed a couple of them with Anointed Procession out, it basically stormed. Like, you basically got like storm life gain where you're getting, like, I had some standard games where the life totals were getting into like the 200s. Like, I think I've played a game where it got to 300 before. It's just ridiculous how much life the decks can generate with Anointed Procession, and then like 3 or 4 Anointer Priests because they all trigger, and then Anointed Procession also triggers. You get like every Sacred Cat you embalm, you get life gain trigger for every Anointer Priest. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah. So, Nitza, I understand that you didn't actually go to pre-release, right?
Right, yeah, my fiance had surgery last Tuesday, so I stayed in last weekend instead of going to pre-release. But I have
made the right choice.
Yeah, yeah.
Agreed.
I have done 5 drafts and a sealed since Monday, so
that's more experience than most of us, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, first things first. How's your fiance doing?
Yeah,
she's good, recovering. Surgery recovery can take some time, but she's improving, so that's good.
Awesome, glad to hear.
Yeah.
Anyways, how are the drafts? Yeah. Or start with sealed, because we're talking sealed for now. And
yeah, the sealed pool was a pretty strong one. I actually have a video up of it just to plug my content. The only sealed video I'll probably do was, and I did one sealed of the set, and it had a pretty strong green-white pool that was just filled with good creatures. Goreclaw was probably the best card I had in my pool. The bear guy who's a 4-mana 4/3 becomes a 5/4 trampler when it attacks, pumps your other big creatures, reduces the cost of other big creatures, and that was pretty good. And I had a little bit of removal, and I had a lot of good creatures, and I started out 3-0, which was really nice. And then in my 4th match, I got to play against someone who had 2 elder dragons. And I killed one of them. They had Vivixis Asmati and Palladiumors both, and I killed Vivictus Asmati, and then they played Palladiumors, and at that point it was just like, what am I supposed to do here? And I lost that one, and then I lost my last match, so I finished 3-2, which was all right. In the sort of pre-release things I have on Magic Online, that was enough to break even. And I actually also had Escape Shift in my pool. Speaking of garbage rares for limited, which was worth a few tickets though, so yeah. I more than broke even thanks to the Scape Shift. It was a fun sealed pool. It's always a little disappointing when you start 3-0 and then just crash to the ground in your last 2, but did well enough. I felt like
that's awesome. Congratulations!
Yeah. It's crazy the price disparity between Scape Shift on in paper and on MTGO. I was looking at like the top prices on the Goat bots or whatever, and I was like, really? Scape Shift is only like 4 tickets?
I sold it for 4 tickets. I mean, that's kind of a lot, but it's not nearly as much as it is in paper, right?
Yeah, it's like $20-something, although it's probably going to drop quite a bit thanks to M19, I would imagine.
Yeah, someone Fury Panda says it's 2 tickets now in Magic Online. So it already has.
Yeah.
Ooh. So so that was the seal that I did. I've done, like I said, I've done 5 drafts. My overall record's been pretty good. I think it's something like 9-5, and I've won 3-0. And the interesting thing about this format, especially right after Dominaria, for me anyway, is that the format has, so far for me, really aggressive decks have been far more successful when I've drafted them. I mean, I've probably drafted more than your average person at this point, but I still have a fairly small sample size, so I'm not like willing to say this format is going to be a really fast one, full stop. But so far, fast decks have been better, and one of the ways of illustrating that is that when I was doing Dominaria and playing all 3 matches, in a draft video, the video was usually like an hour and a half to 2 hours long. And I've recorded 2 drafts now, one of which is already up, where one I went 2-1, one I went 3-0, and they're both under an hour. So,
ooh, wow.
Like, that's the draft and all 3 matches in under an hour. And, the draft takes about 20 minutes. So that shows you how fast the decks I'm drafting that have done well, 5-1 with those have been. So I've, so far I've found that the format's pretty fast. I've found that like red-white aggro especially has really been good for me. Just there's lots of ways of pumping the whole board. There's lots of ways to go wide. There's just good creatures you can curve out with. And I think there's like a little bit of a hangover for Dominaria where people are like expecting this format to be slow, because I was just like, people are trying to ramp into crazy stuff, and I was just like destroying them with like a turn 2 3-1 and a turn 3 3-3, and then like a turn 4 4/3, and then, you know, something that pumped my whole board, and they're just dead because they're playing like their Manalith and stuff, and it's just, you know, so far, like I said, that's been the case for me, is faster decks have been more successful. I've also found that synergy in this set doesn't seem to be that easy to get to. There aren't enough payoffs in a lot of the color pairs to really make the synergy work. I mean, and when I say synergy, you know, like the red-white aggro deck sort of is synergy. It has a lot of ways to go wide and it has ways to pump the team. But I'm talking about like black-white life gain, blue-white artifacts. I have yet to see anybody really have any of those pan out, and I haven't had them pan out myself. There are payoffs, but they're not a lot of them at lower rarities. And so I think so far for me, this format, and it's how core sets usually are, is pretty straight up like play creatures, curve out, removal's good, attack your opponent with, you know, cheap evasive creatures are in this format. So it's pretty simple, and there's sort of sub-themes within color pairs like black-white. Maybe you get some life gain going on, and maybe in blue-white you play some artifacts, but you're not really going to be like drafting super synergistic decks like in Ixalan, where your deck was a Merfolk deck and you had like 1,000 payoffs and everything, or like in Dominaria where your deck could be really historic because there was so many payoffs and things like that. So so I would say don't focus too hard on synergy. Like sheer power seems to be more important than that for the most part so far. And I wanted to mention a few cards that I think people are underrating based on the 5 drafts I've done and where I've seen cards. And the first of them is Angel of the Dawn, which I've seen go as I've picked them up as late as like pick 9, and that's a 4 and a white for a 3/3 flyer. When it enters the battlefield, it gives +1/+1 and vigilance to your whole team, and it's like the perfect card for the aggro decks I'm talking about to play at the top of your curve, because, you know, let's say you have 3 creatures in play, which isn't that hard to do in this format. You pump your whole team, and suddenly your opponent really can't block very well most of the time on that turn. On top of that, your creatures have vigilance, so if you're in a racing situation, guess what? You can still block on your turn. And on top of all of that, after that turn where huge, massive things can happen, it's still a 3/3 flyer. So it's my favorite of the mass board pumps in the set, except for the red-white signpost uncommon. And I've seen it going way too late. I'm kind of surprised to see that, honestly, because we had basically the exact same card, except for creature type, in Dawn Feather Eagle a couple sets ago, and it played amazing. And Angel of the Dawn is doing the same thing. Another one I wanted to talk about is Departed Deckhand. It is basically a 2-mana 2/2 that's unblockable, that in the late game can make your other creatures unblockable. You know, it can be blocked by spirits, but guess what? There is one rare spirit in white, and there is one rare spirit in blue, and that's it. So it's basically unblockable, and it makes other creatures unblockable. I picked one up in one of my drafts, like pick 6 or 7, and it is honestly a first pickable card. I think people really underrate it because they see that the first thing on the card is the downside the card has. Yeah, it dies to anything that targets it that's a spell. Doesn't die to abilities, at least. But it's a 2-mana 2/2, so it's basically dead to all removal anyway. So think of it sort of that way. If your opponent, at best, your opponent's trading 1 for 1 with it, if that's what they're doing, you're fine, right? And if they don't kill it, it's just going to kill them over the course of the game, between being unblockable itself and making your other creatures unblockable. It is honestly, like a first pickable card. There's premium removal I would take over it, but there aren't many other uncommons that aren't like Lightning Strike or Murder that I would take before Departed Deckhand in a first pick situation. And the last card I want to mention is one that's not as exciting as these first two. And that is Giant Spider. It's a card we've seen. It's actually from Alpha. It's like, an original OG Magic card. It's one of the most reprinted cards of all time, and it's still pretty good. And I'm not saying it's great. It certainly is not. But I've seen it like 14th pick, and I think most green decks basically play one of these. Green decks have problems with flyers. It has decent stats. It can block a ton of flyers in this format. There's a lot of 2/2, 2/1, 2/3. There's flyers in this set that just can't attack through a Giant Spider, and that's really nice, I think. So those are cards, that I think people should be going after a little bit earlier, especially the Deckhand and the Angel. The Giant Spider to a lesser extent. You shouldn't be picking it early, but it shouldn't be one of the last cards in a pack in a set that has plenty of other unplayable cards. And the last thing I just wanted to sort of mention is the sweetest thing I've seen in the format so far. Like, you know, I've been doing well with these aggro decks and stuff, but in one of the drafts I did, I was playing this aggro deck where I was just curving out and killing my opponent. And then they played Sarkhan's Unsealing, which, if you remember from a couple weeks ago, was one of my favorite cards in the set that I wanted to build around and everything. And I haven't gotten to do that yet. But I played against someone who did. And they played Sarkhan's Unsealing, which is an insanely powerful build around that, you know, pays you off every time you play a big creature. It just does 4 damage to any target. And then if you play 7 or greater, Sarkhan's Unsealing does 4 to everything that your opponent controls only. And so I had an opponent play Sarkhan's Unsealing turn 4, and I have this like awesome curve out. I'm like going to kill them the next turn. And then on turn 5, they played, what's it called? Inferno Hellion, which... There aren't that many 7-power creatures in this set, but this is one of them, and it just nuked my entire board because I'm playing an aggro deck, and then they just proceeded to kill me with an Inferno Hellion and a bunch of other creatures. But it was really sweet. I was very jealous. I want to do that myself now. You know, just building around Sarkhan's Unsealing seems really awesome, and Inferno Hellion is otherwise a fairly mediocre card, but if you have Sarkhan's Unsealing, it's ridiculous. So... those are, you know, the things I've gathered so far from this format. Formats sort of evolve over time. The more I play, the more I have, you know, evidence that maybe, yes, aggro decks are better, or maybe they're not as good as I was thinking. And right now, that's sort of my thoughts on the format, just to summarize them as hopefully briefly as I can.
Well, there you guys have it. The first impressions of someone who plays a lot of limited and what he thinks of M19 in a nutshell, you know?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I will say is if this format is really fast, which is kind of refreshing right now after Dominaria, which was really slow, and, you know, that was fun, and it is fun, and I usually like formats that are slower and more complicated generally than faster ones, but really fast formats where aggro decks are really king can for me, they do get stale faster, so I'm sort of hoping there's more of a wrinkle than I'm seeing so far in this format. But right now, it's pretty fun to actually just like be killing people on turn 5 instead of waiting for a massive board state and winning the game in an hour, you know? So
yeah. So you mentioned the craziest thing that you saw. Let me just pull from my own little story. So this didn't happen to me, and I certainly didn't pull it off, but it was another match that I was watching. Someone did manage to get a decent deck involving Arkadys, the strategist.
Ooh.
So they did pull Arkadys. It was actually their stamped card, their promo card, and you know, just using like monolith and stuff, managed to, you know, get white mana for it. I think they were running like blue green, I guess. But they did have a couple Wall of Mists and like Wall of Vines. So it actually turned out to be a pretty sweet deck. He won the match that I watched him play, but I talked to him afterwards, and he said he ended up not doing too well. But it was still fun to watch.
Yeah, it's got to be, you got to be a little lucky to end up with a sealed pool where you can actually play Arkadys, because it's like a Defender build around. How many cards of Defender are there? But sounds like a good time.
There's not a lot, but I mean, like the Wall of Mist and Wall of Vines, even Wall of Vines isn't too great. I mean, what is it? It becomes a 3/3 for 1. I mean, it's still great. Like it's not bad.
With reach.
With reach. But like he just had a couple of those, and they're common, so I wasn't too shocked by that. But of course, like Arkadys was good himself. You know, he's just a really strong card. You know, 3/5 flying vigilance for 4. You know, he basically won off just Arkadys. Him having walls out was just like a kind of just like a little like just a little fun. You know, a little cheeky fun.
I mean, if you manage to play Arkadys and play 2 cards with Defender, you are at least drawing. You draw a card every time you play a creature with Defender. So
yep.
So you're doing pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, Wall of Mist turns into a 5/5 for 2.
Yeah, they're huge, and they replace themselves. It's hard to go wrong.
All right, so let us move on from talking about M19 pre-release.
Do you want to hear about my seal?
Oh my God, Mike. I totally forgot.
You gotta speak up a little bit.
Kind of hard to get a word in edgewise.
Dude, okay, we actually just filmed a new video for Nitza's channel.
maybe I went a little too deep there. Huh?
That's all good.
No, that's okay.
We
It's
did.
all good.
We just mushed in Nitza Hone's limited corner into the pre-release discussion. So yeah, I wasn't able to go to pre-release either, but I did do a MTGO sealed as well as a draft, and I did decently well. I went 3-2 on my sealed, so that was enough to get me Planeswalker points to do a draft as well. On my sealed, I put together a pretty decent life gain deck. I actually pulled a Resplendent Angel, which is just disgusting.
Ooh,
Although I have to say it didn't perform nearly as well as I had hoped, because removal is actually really pretty decent in this set. There's so much splashable removal, and especially removal that deals 3 damage. So
yeah,
because there's the -3/-3 life drain spell, and it's a little harder for me to talk and update the card. Okay, there's a Resplendent Angel. It's just a house on its own.
That card only hits players, the -3 life drain thing.
No, the instant that gives a creature -3/-3.
Oh, -3. Yeah. Gotcha.
Also, Nightmare's Thirst can hit, for -3 pretty commonly, and there's Lightning Strike and
yep.
Yeah, Electrify. Murder. Yeah. lots of good removal that takes care of Resplendent Angel. So it's kind of hard to get it to stick. But if it does stick, which I was only able to pull off on one game, I got 3 4/4 Angel tokens, and that closed out the game pretty easily.
That'll do it.
And Plague Mare has performed decently. Especially, for the people that did realize what Nitza Hone has been talking about this format possibly being faster than we imagined. That thing can just, stomp a aggressive deck, that's playing a lot of the 3/1 Cat Warriors.
Yeah, I haven't run into that yet, but it would be definitely backbreaking for the kind of decks I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I was just going to add on to what you were saying, too, about I think people really are still on a Dominaria hangover because everybody is playing very slow. I mean, in Sealed, it's going to be slower for the most part, but even in Draft, I saw people, trying to play much slower decks than, probably is correct for right now. Although, I was going to point out, there is one slower deck that I think is kind of a sleeper. I mean, I think people are aware of it, but the mill decks are actually pretty disgusting.
Really?
With Psychic Corrosion. It's a uncommon, so it's not impossible to get a hold of 1 or 2 of them. And with Sift, if you can get a hold of a couple copies of Sift, that just ends the game so quickly because... And again, maybe they just got the nut draw and they were, messing with me. But there's enough, delaying mechanics in the set with walls, like Wall of Mist, and quite a few creatures that have big butts on them, that if you get the right deck put together, you can hold out the game long enough to definitely mill somebody out and limit it at the very least.
Yeah, something else I want to pull off is Psychic Corrosion plus Patient Rebuilding, the rare.
Oh yeah, that's just
disgusting.
Yeah,
but I haven't been the victim of a mill deck yet, but I know it'll happen. There seems to be enough mill laying around and enough, like you said, ways for blue decks to stall to pull off some mill wins. So I think Patient Rebuilding plus Psychic Corrosion, you're milling at 5-7 cards a turn at least.
Yeah, I think the killer is that Divination is in the format. So you've got a common draw 2 spell, and then you also have an uncommon draw 3 spell, which...
Yeah, that's true.
Even with 1 Psychic Corrosion, that's not a lot of turns. And if they can stall the game out, successfully with Sleep and Aviation Pioneer, I found was a really good speed bump when you're playing the mill decks. A lot of people had those, to hold the ground for them. And then the removal is just so good, like we were talking about. There's so many ways that you can just kind of hold the game off long enough to pretty handily mill somebody out. Whereas in other formats, that would be way too slow of a strategy. So although there is the red-white aggressive decks, I think it's definitely possible, to put together, a slower, more grindy deck like Mill. But then again, it's not even that slow. I think the game that they beat me with the mill strategy, they had 2 Psychic Corrosions out. That game was over in less than 10 turns because he just drew so many cards because he had 3 divinations. And again, maybe he just got the nut deck, and he had everything that he needed. But yeah.
It would be interesting to see that matchup, the red-white aggro deck that can pump the whole team, curve out and pump the whole team on turn 5 or whatever, versus that, to see if it could survive long enough to actually mill that deck out. Like nut draw versus nut draw, I guess is what I'm saying.
Well, if they do have the really good setup, they might have a couple Plague Mirrors as well, and Vampire Sovereign is really backbreaking in that matchup too, because you get the 3 life drain and a 3/4, but a big old 3/4 flyer, which holds down the fort pretty well. So
it's flying Siege Rhino.
Yeah, it's nothing to be trifled with, that's for sure. So yeah, in general, I've kind of enjoyed it. I need to definitely spend some more time with it. My draft, I drafted a... what did I draft? Crap. Oh, it was a blue-black control deck. I just went a little more classic. I wasn't doing a mill strategy. It was just like blue-black flyers was kind of what my MO was. I had the blue-black... actually, I had 2 of the blue-black uncommon, the Psychic Symbiont.
I do want to play with that one too at some point. Yeah,
that let me value out people pretty hard. I ended up going 1 and 2, but I had 2 matches where it was the really close games, so I think I was there, but I did get beat down faster. So more evidence to that as well. But with Psychic Symbiont and I had Meteor Golem. Oh my gosh! So that was my actual win condition or win strategy. Was I just kept slamming Meteor Golem over and over again because I had a reanimate spell. I had the 2 mana instant. What is that one called? It's kind of the downgraded reprint from
Macabre Waltz.
Abnormal Endurance. Yeah, so they would go to so basically I just got to swing in as many times as I wanted because they knew that I had abnormal endurances. And then occasionally they would have to just finally block, and then I just play that, and then I get to bring my Meteor Golem back and just nuke another thing on their board, which turned out to be very important in a couple matches because the other sleeper card I wanted to mention is Open the Graves. Holy cow, that card gets out of hand fast. Really, really fast. There's just enough playable, non-token creatures that get value when they enter the board, that having that card out just can win you the game pretty quickly because, every time they use removal on something, they still get their 2/2. And yeah, it just gets out of hand pretty quickly, so...
Yeah, this plus reassembling skeleton, that was not a fun game.
Oh, yeah. That's an awesome combo. Holy cow. But yeah, I think that's all I've got so far. I'm definitely going to be doing more, though. So I'll keep you posted.
All right, so moving on, we're actually going to be talking a little bit about Arena. So yeah, today, major patch, M19 released on Arena, along with a slew of interesting changes that are maybe positive, maybe not. So some of the bigger changes included changes to the previous vault system and how we as players get wild cards and how we basically acquire cards in the game in general. So everyone kind of knows that there's like a little bottlenecking effect when it comes to Magic Arena right now, where you get a lot of common wild cards, uncommon wild cards, but then you get stuck and you don't really get a lot of rares or mythics, and it's kind of hard to grind it out. It basically makes it so Arena is not a free-to-play game, and it ends up being pretty expensive to get decks that you want or get the cards that you want to play with. So they're looking for solutions to fix that, and right now what you used to do was you would have the vault system, all your extra cards, more than 4 in your collection, would become basically dust, fill up your vault, and then you'd get guaranteed 1 mythic, 2 rare, and then, you know, other wild cards like that. But people were arguing that it was too slow, that you weren't getting the wild cards as you needed them to basically keep the game interesting and create decks. Like, you would have to grind for like weeks, months in order to fill that thing up. Or you could just spend $100 and open a bunch of packs. You know, no, and that certainly defeats the purpose of Arena being like kind of a cheaper, free-to-play model. But we all know it's not actually free-to-play. So what they did replace it with in this recent patch is basically a radial ticker for when you open packs. So instead of opening packs and your cards creating dust to fill up a vault, every pack you open goes towards a progression meter that gives you a rare and a mythic wild card at the end of it. I think it's something like 6 packs gets you a rare, 12 gets you a mythic, something like that, something around those lines. Basically what they said in the patch notes is that you're going to get the same amount of rare and mythic wildcards as you did before, but they're just making it so you have an actual reason to want to open up those packs and get packs open, and rewarding you a little bit more than just throwing dust up into a vault that you would eventually get, you know? But in this, they've reduced the percentage chance that you would get a mythic or rare wild card naturally from opening packs. So basically, it evens out, at least in their eyes and in their statistics, that I'm sure they have way more data on than I do. So I'm going to trust them on that one. But it doesn't really fix the core issue. If everything stays the same, then we're still going to experience that bottleneck when it comes to rare and mythics and getting the cards that you want to build decks. And it still leaves us with a huge open-ended question on what does Arena do with the horde of commons that we get in every pack that we open. Since they're incentivizing opening more packs, we're going to get a lot of commons, you know? What happens to the 5th plus copies of all those commons? We don't seem to be getting anything out of it. So basically, I just want to have an open discussion with you guys to see, like, what are your thoughts and feelings on this? And do you guys think there's any real nice way that they can improve upon this system and kind of make it a better experience for everyone?
So, just as a sample point here, I've got my account open, and I currently have 93 common wildcards, 86 uncommon wildcards, and 5 rares and 3 mythics. And I believe the 4 of the rares and 1 of the mythic wildcards came from the new system ticking over, because I had a almost filled chest before.
Yeah.
So
in the new patch, when they got rid of the actual vault, anyone who had literally any dust in their vault, even like 1%, they gave you a full slate of rewards from the vault, which is 1 mythic, 2 rare, and then blah, 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 uncommon commons. So yeah, before this, that means you had 2 mythics and 3 rares, right?
You get 3 rares from the vault before. It was
rares,
1.
my mistake.
Yeah, the vault used to be 1 mythic, 3 rares, and then like a couple uncommons. I think they got rid of commons out of it, but that kind of stinks. So I kind of lost out then. I mean, compared to somebody that had like a 1%, vault and got all the rewards.
So the way it was written in the patch notes, it was like literally anybody who had any dust in there. They didn't give you more based on how full it was. So people who were sitting at like 90+%, you guys got gypped if you guys didn't fill that up before the patch ticked over.
Yeah, would have been nice to know.
Yep.
Oh well. It doesn't matter at the end of the day, because we're all going to get our accounts reset, when the full version comes out in the fall. So
yeah, and when that full version comes out, we have to look at how real players, not beta players, the real general public, how are they going to react to a game whose current system doesn't reward them for having the scores of commons that they're bound to get. I know they're working on a new system. They don't really have that fleshed out right now, but they need to have something in place, right? Because what they currently have is so dissatisfying to people who want to spend a limited amount of their own money on this game.
Yeah, and like off the top of my head, not off the top of my head, I've been thinking about this for a while, but just based on the sample I gave you, I've got 93 commons, 86 uncommons. Like, there has to be some fair way where you can trade in lower level wild cards to go up, and then also to like dissolve mythic rare. Like, I feel like the rate would be dissolve a mythic rare, get 3 rare wild cards.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe...
And then don't even give them the option to dissolve the rare. Just don't. It doesn't even matter.
Don't, because you're going to need it for all the rare lands that you're going to have to waste your rare wild cards on, but I'm going to save that rant for a possible future video. But it just seems like the easiest, most fair implementation would be just let us take those, unused common and uncommon wild cards and, craft them up, into rarer wild cards like that. That would make so much sense to me, because I'm never going to use all these common wild cards, because if I keep opening packs, I'm going to get all the commons and uncommons from the new set. Like,
exactly.
It doesn't incentivize me at all to buy packs, because right now I could craft, 4 of every playable common in Constructed from M19 and still have a ton left over, and same with uncommon. The only incentive to open packs for me now is to get a bunch of rares so I can craft, fun decks to play, for the channel, which just feels awful that I have to spend this much, because like if it was MTGO, after we were done with the deck tech, I could just sell the cards and put it back into
trade them off, whatever you needed to do.
Put it back into the fund.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if
you think they would...
Go ahead, Nitza.
You'd think they would add... I don't know why they don't, but maybe just to avoid being like Hearthstone, but a dusting system would solve like all of these problems, right?
Yeah. So I've seen a couple arguments over Twitter. I know the best source for all intellectual conversations. I've seen a couple arguments for both the things that you guys have stated. And I was actually, just before you said that, Nitza, was about to make the point that it seems like Wizards of the Coast is going out of their way to avoid a dusting system in the fear of being too similar to Hearthstone, when I think that's the completely wrong approach. And like, they've mastered that system, and it's not like Hearthstone's the only online TCG that has that as a system. It's basically every online card game has something similar to that, right? Something akin to that style of using duplicates to create cards that you want. So I don't know why Wizards, or maybe they're trying to implement it and they just can't. Maybe it's like something in the actual analytics or in the programming that they're trying to work with. But from my perspective, it just looks like they're like trying to avoid it for no good reason.
Which is kind of silly, because Hearthstone clearly borrowed a few things from Magic in like making the game itself, right? I mean, obviously they perfected like the online, the app, the all of those things that Magic has yet to do, but there's a lot of similarities between the two games.
Yeah. My only guess is that they are trying to make this as financially viable as possible for them and not care. I know, I don't want to go there, but it really feels that way.
So, Nicole, I'm 100% with you. And look, I'm not one of those people who are like, man, this is a free-to-play game. Every card ever made should be available to me right away. No, I'm not in that camp. They are a business. They need to make money. This is the future of their game. So, like, it is like a direction that they want to go in, and they, of course, want to see it to be a success. But, I mean, Wizards of the Coast has been accused of taking the greedier route on things in the past.
Yeah. So there's a bit of a presence there, and wouldn't surprise me if they were continuing that trend for as much as possible.
Yeah. But, like, Nicole, I want you, like, just off the top of your head, what do you think would be the best use of commons, uncommons, even rares and stuff like that you have more than 4 copies of in Arena? Like, just off the top of your head, what do you think is the best way to deal with those? Trading would be awesome. Yes, it would 100% be awesome. Something along those lines. It would be great. I mean, that's one of the awesome things about
Mitgo is that, you can trade off your deck and say, oh, I have these and you have those. Let's trade. We don't have to do anything. But yeah, I think they've blatantly said we will not put that in there.
Yeah, that is basically 100%. If it wasn't explicitly stated, I think that was like a model that they have already discussed and said we're trying to not go in that route.
Right, because I think what happens is it opens it up to, you've got your card hoarders and businesses and bots and stuff like that. And I really think they're trying to avoid that as much as possible and trying to keep all that money internal to them.
They definitely do not want third party influence in this game at all.
Well, and they've really just bit their own tongues multiple times so far. And I really wish they would work on their messaging because the excuse that they're giving is that Magic's gameplay is worth it. Is basically what they've said. But
oh my God,
not even in those words. They said players should expect to pay a premium price for this because our gameplay is better than other games. Is what they said, and it's such a toxic attitude to have going into this because everybody gets it. Magic is the #1 trading card game in paper. But they're fighting an uphill battle in the digital space. They always have been. They've had so many failed digital offerings so far. You just wish that whoever, whatever marketing executive is, in charge of this pony show would just see the light and be like, oh, we're not actually the leaders in this space. We need to be humble and, come up with a way to reach, because it's all about economies of scale. Hearthstone's always going to make more money because their player base is huge, even if Magic charges more, because they've got their built-in fan base of people like us that are going to spend hundreds, of dollars every year on Arena trying to play competitive decks and, brew and stuff. But it doesn't even hold a candle to having that million more players that spend a few dollars here and there and still have a good time. And I know it's a tricky balance to strike, and that's why I want to give them the benefit of the doubt, but there's just so many little adjustments. If they would just make them, I feel like this would, just hopefully be more successful and bring more people into the game. Because, selfish reasons here, but content creators want more people to be into the game so that more people, see our content.
No secret there.
And that's why you're going to see a lot of people, like Saffron Olive, being...
He's very passionate
very
about
vocal.
this.
Yeah, very vocal about it.
I mean, you gotta wonder if, with all the negative feedback and everything, will Magic Arena actually be complete, be what they want it to be on time? Fall's rapidly approaching, and there's still things they haven't figured out. They haven't figured out what exactly they're replacing the vault with, right? So,
core things of the economy, a core aspect of the game.
Right.
It's still up in limbo.
As a software developer, let me tell you this. It will be late.
Yeah,
I'm just saying, it will be late. If they release something on time, it will not be complete. There will be things missing. It's just what happens, especially when it seems like they didn't plan far enough ahead to account for, they didn't like this. We need to change that and completely rewrite everything.
Yeah.
So.
The kind of a crazy thing is, we're talking about how, they had to fight an uphill battle and they're sort of late to the game. But in some ways, Magic Online was an online card game, in 1999, right? If they had, thought to be more innovative and come up with, new ways of doing the game, they could have been far ahead by the time Hearthstone came along, but they didn't. They just basically translated it to paper in 1999, and that's what Magic Online has been since then. There's not really any major difference between Magic Online and paper Magic. Yeah. But it is interesting to think that if they'd had more innovative people working on Magic Online, we could be looking at a completely different world, sort of.
Potentially,
I agree.
You do have to remember that Wizards of the Coast is a larger company. And so, especially with software development, I work at a very large company and we move slowly. We are far behind on a lot of different things because we move so slow because of the bureaucracy and things like that. So it could be that, they had a lot of creative and innovative people on their team back then, but they just were using outdated technology and they couldn't get it up to date and things like that at the time. So just to support my software engineers.
Yeah, right. I wasn't trying to bash the engineers so much as the sort of architects, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, to be fair to them, like the game plays pretty great. I mean, I know, people are finding bugs occasionally where cards aren't working, but that happens on MTGO. It happens on Hearthstone even. And I'm sure the Hearthstone team is like, way bigger than the Wizards team. I can't even.
Yeah.
Blizzard has
the Wizards team on Arena.
Yeah. Like Blizzard has a giant, they're a huge company. They're a multi-billion dollar company compared to Wizards being like a couple $1 billion company. So, setting our expectations there, like I think they're doing a pretty decent job with the, gameplay itself and everything, but there's just so much that you have to keep in mind when you're designing the economy of, again, it's that economies of scale thing. Like they need to reach a wider audience, I think, if they really want this to be successful and really take off. And I'm not super confident in that right now.
Yes, same here. And like you said, like you were just alluding to, the success of Arena, it doesn't hinge on getting current Magic players who are playing paper on a regular basis to play the game. It's almost completely like leaning on getting new people who are just into online TCGs like Hearthstone to play the game almost for the first time. Maybe they know about Magic the Gathering, maybe they used to play it, but they're getting this new taste after playing Hearthstone and stuff like that to play a Magic in a way that they, can kind of like ideally play it, maybe they can't play paper all the time. Maybe MTGO is too scary to hop into, too expensive to hop into. So they really need to capture that audience, because you already have people who are going to play paper religiously. They're not going to play Arena for any number of reasons. Too casuals, economy's weird, can't trade. Take a pick. They'll find a reason not to play it. They really need to capture a new audience. And aesthetically, I think it's there, but the economy really, really puts people off. I mean, when you're offered a stack of gems, I forgot how much it is, for $100 is like their biggest thing that they can offer you, and you buy as many packs as that's worth. It's something in the kin to you're looking at it right now, right? Right, Mike?
Yep, it's 20,000 gems.
How many packs can 20,000 gems get you?
About 50-ish.
So okay, this is great because the math is kind of broken down to every 30 packs you get around 5 or 6 rare wild cards, I think. So just imagine that you just spent $100 for not even for barely 2 play sets.
Oh, sorry, it's 90 packs.
Of a rare.
90 packs.
Oh, 90 packs. Okay,
yeah.
That's way better. That's way better.
And actually you have like 2,000 gems left over too. So you get about roughly 100 and some change packs.
But still, to make a perfectly tuned deck and optimized deck, you're not only going to have to buy those 90 packs, but you're probably only stuck with that one deck if you literally put all of your resources into making that fully tuned deck. So it's not cheap.
Yeah.
It's not cheap to try and play this game at a high level.
Well,
and I think a lot of players can see that.
And you don't have to follow the professor to know that you don't buy booster boxes. Like he does a really great job illustrating that when he does the booster box game every set.
You're buying it for value.
Yeah, but that's the only thing you can do on here is play the booster box game. And in this case, you can't even resell your cards. So it's just, I really wish there was a better way forward on this, because we're just stuck in this weird space where we have MTGO, which is needed because Modern is such a popular format. Like if Modern didn't exist, I feel like they could have made this game cheaper, because at the end of the day, they don't have 2 online services that they're juggling. Because
like one kind of cannibalizing the other kind of situation.
Yeah, and I feel like they're walking the tightrope right now, where they're trying not to cannibalize MTGO with Arena, but they're also they're trying to have their cake and eat it too. And
Yeah.
Everybody knows that doesn't work unless you just are insanely lucky.
Well, Arena right now is, that's where a lot of hardcore, really passionate players reside. They really can't lose that audience unless they're sure Arena is going to kind of overtake it. And if Arena is never going to have Modern in it, which they kind of said they want to stay clear of, basically to stay to Standard and Limited, you need to have an environment for those people to kind of play and congregate. So then, like, MTGO is very much needed still.
Yeah. I think this is going to be a developing situation. So you probably put this one. We could talk about this for another couple hours. Does anybody?
Oh, easily.
Anybody have like a parting thought? Or?
Yeah, I mean, we have high level community members that are well respected, well heard from Wizards of the Coast, providing feedback. This is not, random, players giving this feedback. This is those random players, the beta testers, and big voices in the community giving this feedback. They're listening. What they do with the information is a completely different story, but they are hearing it.
Oh, and never look at the Arena forums unless you just want to be ill.
Most of the feedback there is negative, isn't it?
Oh, that doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at that thread today for the new update, and that's all I saw. So
yeah, it doesn't even scratch the surface. It's pretty nasty. But I'm sure they weed through it and they find some decent stuff. And again, they have the ear, a lot of the biggest content creators have the ear of people like Lee Sharp, who's part of the Arena team and is monitoring that stuff. So they're definitely aware of the problems, and this is them probably fighting against corporate and the player base, which developers are just constantly in that struggle. They have to keep the corporate interest happy and make a great game, because at the end of the day, the developers and even the marketing teams want to make a fun game. They're gamers, I'm sure, but they have to please the shareholders, and they're trying to please us. So, hopefully
it's a balancing act for sure.
Yep. Hopefully they figure it out.
Well, lots more to come, I'm sure. Lots of feedback given to them by the community. A lot for them to work on. Hey, and the release is quickly approaching, so I'm sure we'll see some moves coming up in the next month or so.
All right. So also today we learned that there's cards that are legal and standard, but only on Arena. If anybody had any thoughts on that.
Yes. So this is a huge topic that a lot of people have some pretty heated opinions on, and that's the idea of like exclusive cards in Magic the Gathering, either for specific mediums or regions, stuff like that. Ways that you can only get specific cards through one outlet rather than just coming from packs, for example, just straight up packs, but are still legal in the environment that they're kind of released in. So essentially, only a select few players will have access to these cards. I'm not saying a select few. It's not like randomly people are picked to get these cards, but less people are going to have access to these cards than other players, and they're legal to be played in Standard. So, exclusive cards, go.
My thing about them, the ones they designed don't look like they're going to be competitive at all, the ones that we've seen. But my thing about them is, why? What's the point? It doesn't make sense to me from a marketing perspective. People who are just getting into Arena aren't going to know really that those cards are exclusive to it. They're going to be people just playing Arena, right? The kind of people they're hoping to attract. And they have cards, they already print cards, in Core Set 2019, you have Aggressive Mammoth and stuff like that are just in the pre-cons that you can get for Core Set 2019. There already are sort of weird cards that aren't in Core Set 2019 booster packs, but are legal in Standard. They're just never they're never good enough to really be competitive in Standard, which is the same exact thing. And so I guess what I'm saying is why not just use those cards? They're already cards that are designed for a beginning player. Why design these completely new cards? And I'm not really saying it's a bad idea, because maybe, it just seems pointless to me, I guess, is my sort of take on it. I just don't understand why it's necessary when... it's, you know, they've already sort of done the same thing in Paper Magic, just put that on Arena, you know.
Yeah, so from a marketing standpoint, and this is kind of not really talking about Arena so much as, like, you know, buy a box and stuff like that, or even like the regionally locked kind of cards. It's talking more about those rather than Arena, because Arena is kind of like a different beast. I'm going to talk about that in a second. But, you know, exclusive cards, sorry, they can breed a lot of desire to want to buy a product, right? Like having something that's exclusive, rare, you know, stuff like that. It kind of drives the desire to purchase stuff. So from a marketing standpoint, I can kind of get it, especially with like buy a box promos. It's not like you're buying. Right. It's not like the promo is, you know, a foil rare that you can get from the pack with a stamp on it. You know, people would be less, you know, inclined to want to try and go for those because, you know, you can get them in any pack or buy them afterwards. But they're going to be much more inclined to try and go for that offer if it's a rare, like a super exclusive card that they can only get through that outlet, you know? So from a marketing standpoint, at least in the buy a box promo kind of thing, and then to a lesser degree, the regional cards, it kind of drives players' desire to buy it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, yeah, you could be right. If it's sort of like a central aspect of advertisements for it, like play Arena and get these exclusive cards, then maybe it makes a little more sense. But right now it just seems like people wouldn't even know they are exclusive. But yeah, if they're going to market it that way, then maybe it gets more people to play.
So as a side note, in Arena, when you buy those big bundles of 90 packs, those buy a box promos are front and center on those bundle packs.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like right now, you can get the Sarkon Time Walk.
And basically the only way for you to get that in Arena is if you spend what is the bare minimum? It's like 45 packs worth.
Yeah, so about $50, and that's not. Yeah, that's actually not the only way to get it. You can actually use a wild card to get them.
Oh yeah, okay. So you can use a wild card to get them, but you know, outside of that, there's no way to get it in packs. You either buy it with gems or you use one of your wild cards to craft it. So there is a lot of
the buy a box promos are like way more exciting cards. Even if they're not going to be like competitive, they're like sweet, cool cards. These cards we're talking about that are exclusive on Arena, they're like most of them. Like the only one that's interesting is the guy who draws you a card and gains you a life every time you play a 2-power creature. The rest are all just like mediocre cards, honestly. So it's like,
no, I agree.
I can give you the official response that I saw from Lee Sharp earlier, who, like I previously mentioned, is on the Arena team. He said that they were crafted to give a specific, you know, experience for new players, and you know, that's his excuse.
You mean like the welcome precon decks?
Yeah, it's just like
why not just put that in there?
Yeah. And I agree with you guys, but that was his response, was that they made those cards specifically to do that. You know, conspiracy theorists would say that they're testing for putting, you know, more Arena specific cards in the game, but I really can't see them doing that much more. Like, what kind of excites me about it is that maybe eventually we'll see some PvE content, where we're facing, like, you know, computer players that have like special cards, kind of like in Hearthstone, you've got the Kobolds and Catacombs dungeon run experience, which could totally be a thing in Arena. You know, it's the same, you know, similar concept.
That would be cool.
Yeah. That would be fun.
So I would love that.
Yeah. I'm trying to look at the positive side here. Maybe that's what they were trying, was like, hey, let's build some cards that are specifically for Arena, and then maybe eventually in a similar AI experience, kind of like the new player experience, there will be like special cards like Nicol Bolas. You know, there will be like a, you know, what's that called? Arch enemy type thing.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Because I'm sure they can't ignore Brawl, because I follow Hearthstone a little bit, even though I don't play it very much anymore. And Brawl brings a lot of content creators back to create videos for Hearthstone. Just like when there's a really fun brawl, and all the most fun brawls have cards that are specifically crafted for that brawl. Like the bot.
Oh yeah, tavern brawls are really cool. Like Arena really needs something like that too, I think. Just because that's the kind of thing that gets a casual player to come back and play, because you don't, for a lot of the brawls, tavern brawls, you don't need cards, really. They give you a deck or whatever, right? So you can just go and play, and you get a pack for your trouble, and it's like a fun, unique experience. I think that would be great to see on Arena.
Yeah, so, looking at the positive side of things, that might be what they're doing, is gearing up for, their own version of Brawl, which, I would think it would be very foolish to not, do something similar, because they have to have seen how successful that is for Hearthstone player retention. Having, like, some kind of weekly free event where you get, just a pack, and then get to play a casual nonsense game with, like, cards that you normally wouldn't have or something. So, hopefully that's the case.
So I'm going to say right now, like, in terms of the Arena exclusive cards, a lot of people are saying things like, oh, this sets precedent. Oh, they're going to have cards that are really good one day for Arena. And I mean, that's always going to be a fear that people can hold. But I think it's a fear that right now is unjustified. And basically, just like Nitza, you said this earlier, that the cards are just bad. They're not good. There was no reason for them to add them because they already give you free decks designed for new-ish players. They give you decks. Why don't they just craft a new player deck, that has really simple, vanilla kind of text creatures and spells, rather than just give you these, what was it, like 6 random cards? Like, even
and it's also weird that they're all white. Like,
yeah.
No, they have the other ones too, don't they? Because someone was putting a picture on Twitter of this cute little turtle shoal crab.
Oh yeah, they have the turtle. That's not available. That's not available for players.
Yeah,
that was one of the computer decks.
No,
and again,
that was so cute.
Yeah, with like the pirate hat shell.
Yeah,
it was
interesting.
adorable.
And that kind of actually serves my point, like I was saying, that maybe they're playing around with cards that they can create for AI, players to create more of these PvE experiences, which would be awesome.
Yeah, which I'm completely fine with. But people are using like the slippery slope arguments and stuff like that, and I never have been a fan of that. Of course, it can be a legitimate fear in some cases. I don't think this comes nearly close to warranting such an extreme reaction. Like, no. Arena is done. Like, Arena is not a legitimate form of play anymore because they have these exclusive, 6 mana cost cards.
Which we did actually see a couple people declare that. Yeah, which is odd.
Yeah,
I was a little confused when Saffron all tweeted that earlier.
Yeah.
That was...
I mean, the whole slippery slope logic thing, I mean, it's called a logical fallacy for a reason. Like, you don't have any evidence. You're just assuming things are going to keep going in the same direction to an extreme, and that's just like, there's no evidence,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and you said it earlier, Nitza, that the Buy a Box promos have been way, way, way better than the things that we saw in Arena. So,
they're at least cool.
They have good effects. They're not weird vanilla creatures that are super expensive or something like that,
And they're not a concern on Arena because you can craft them with wild cards. Whereas on paper, they are legitimately a concern because if they ever go forward with, creating one that's really powerful, then we're going to have a problem because they're going to be so expensive, because it's just such a limited amount on the market.
So before we kind of end this topic, I do want to kind of dive into that, maybe the fear that some people have about Arena kind of creating their own world that's separate from paper with their own different cards. What do you guys think that would that be a bad thing if Arena kind of had its own playstyle away from paper, had its own weird kooky kind of effects that just won't work on paper?
I don't think so.
Random effects.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I don't have anything
Fine,
else.
okay, I'll talk. I mean, it all depends on who they're catering Arena to. Is it for those of us who are enfranchised pro players, we need the same format that we're going to be playing against? Or what I think they're doing is going to new players who they're trying to, get new people in and get playing. I don't see why that's a problem for those new players. And as long as they're very well aware of what cards are printed in paper and what aren't, so if they decide to make the transition to paper, there's no surprises that way. I don't see what a problem is. I mean, in Mitko, we have, what's the bucket one where you do random creatures that you just...
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We have that, and you know how hard that is to put into paper? That you really can't do it effectively. But we have that on Mitko, and it lives, and it's awesome. I don't see why it's a problem to do this in Arena. as long as the people they're catering towards are the newer beginning players.
Yeah, and I mean, if players come back and be like, well, this is not the way Magic's played, look at any unset. That's paper
That's
Magic,
not the way.
And they have the kookiest mechanics you could ever imagine. So even if they went in this direction, which I hope they do, honestly, like they are obviously trying to cater to a new player base that maybe don't have the most in-depth experiences with paper Magic. So I hope they add some stuff in there to spice it up and get people interested, other players interested. But it's not like Magic is, completely holy and pure from that stuff, because they do have stuff like unsets, and they do have crazy card with crazy effects sometimes.
Well, and it's, again, like Nitza said, it's a slippery slope argument. Don't fall for those guys. It's a proven, logical fallacy. Like, it's just to stir up controversy, because, hey, people like controversy these days, so. That's true.
So, I mean, I think we're all basically in agreement that these kind of exclusive cards that seem to be popping up more and more nowadays, they haven't been an issue, but we can all kind of agree that there could be one day where they are an issue, where a buy a box promo is actually, like, not format defining, but really good in a format, right?
Yeah, I mean, they definitely have to be careful. Like, they can't let something slip through without, like, thoroughly play testing it and making sure there's not some hidden 2-card combo they missed out on or anything like that. Like, that's definitely a concern. If they ever screw that up, it will be a huge disaster, I think.
Yeah, and I think the one time they do it could actually kill the buy a box promo for years, if not forever.
It probably, it would. I think it would.
Yeah, the backlash would be too much to come back from.
Oh, and I was going to say, we'd probably be remiss if we didn't mention some of the new features of the patch. You actually get 5 free decks for completing the tutorial. You don't have to do the tutorial. Mm-hmm. You can just hit escape and skip tutorial.
Which I did not know, by the way. I got stuck in the entire tutorial, and I was like, I couldn't find a button that said just leave, and I didn't think about hitting escape, so I played it. But I'm going to say, guys, the tutorial was actually kind of funny. They had some funny writing, and there was like some really, really funny banter between like your guide and then the character avatars that you were playing against. So it actually wasn't like a terrible experience. For new players, it's going to be a huge boon to them to kind of go through that. Just learning the basics and everything. But even if you just want to hear some like Planeswalker voice acting and some just like funny conversations, I just say do it.
Well, like I said, it's probably a sign of things to come, with like PvE content later. So
hopefully, if that's like a little taste of what could come, I'd be really excited for it.
Some notable cards that you get. Just looking at the black deck first, you get 2 Death Barons. So that's the start of a zombie deck, which is kind of nice. And that's, again, these are just free, completing the tutorial. Open the Graves is what you get a 1 of. You get a Yargle.
Oh boy!
You get a Gravewaker, which is that new Vulture Reanimator card.
Oh, that's actually
that's
the
a card that's from a starter deck that isn't actually in the set. Yeah,
it's from the starter deck and not actually from the decks from the M19. That's cool. I didn't know they added stuff like that.
It would have been a limited bomb, So.
In the red deck, you actually get 3 times Lightning Strike. So if you're a newer player, that's actually really great, because then you don't have to get the uncommon wild cards for that.
That's Dragon's Fire, right?
No, Lightning Strike, like the 2 mana.
No. The deck is called Dragon's Fire.
It's called Dragon's Fire. You get one Demanding Dragon, which I think actually might see competitive play possibly if the dragon deck comes together. I
sure hope so.
And you get a Lathliss Dragon Queen too, so that's pretty cool. From the white deck, you get the goofball special ones that we talked about, but you also get Leonin War Leader.
It's a good card.
Get a 1 of that. Not a whole lot of other notables aside from the ones that they made specifically for this. Oh, you do get a Zatalpa Primal Dawn, which is a really good reanimator target, because it's a giant 4/8 flying double strike vigilance trample indestructible bird from Ixalan. Forest Might deck, you get a Giganosaurus, 1 of that. You get an aggressive Mammoth, you get a Prodigious Growth, and you get a Ghalta.
Mammoth also, yeah.
So that's pretty.
Yeah, the Mammoth is another Planeswalker deck card, right?
Yeah, like an intro. Yeah, pre-con deck card. Yeah, the Planeswalker deck. That's what.
Yeah,
it is.
sorry. Yeah.
But
You do get a free Golta, right? Like, is that what you said?
Yep.
So hey, I mean that and Gigantosaurus. I mean that's the start of a Stompy deck.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then
So it's
in blue
really cool.
we get Diamond Mare. Of course, I love that for my horse deck. You get Psy Master Thopterist. He's the new legendary Thopter maker guy. You get a Tempest Djinn, which is that rare from Dominaria that has power equal to your islands. And you get a Riddlemaster Sphinx and Zahid, Djinn of the Lamp. And yeah, it's really not a bad number of pretty decent rares that they give you.
Yeah, and they start you off with a good slate of common M19 cards, common and uncommon mix. So,
oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, another thing I wanted to add for what's basically quality of life changes. You get to select your own avatar now.
No, you can.
Yep, from all of the Gatewatch Planeswalkers and Sarkhan and Vivian Reed. So, and Tezzeret, you got a villain in there too. So, mine's currently Karn because I love Karn as a character, but you can pick basically all of the Gatewatch plus a couple extra.
Which Pyromaster do you do?
Yeah, it looks
Jaya
like
Ballard, Chandra.
We got.
It's one of those two.
I'll just give the list down if you're a newer player and you don't know all of them. It's a Johnny Goldmane, Chandra Nalar, Gideon Jura, Jace Balerion, Jaya Ballard, Karn. No last name. Liliana Vess, Nissa Ravane, Sarkhan Vol, Teferi, who also doesn't have a last name. Huh, didn't think about that. Tezzeret and Vivian Reed are the current ones.
Tezzeret doesn't have a last name either.
Yeah. Huh.
I guarantee you they have last names. I remember reading Tezzeret's story specifically, and he has a family name. I just can't recall it.
He's probably just forsaken it because he's Tezzeret, right?
I mean, he just flips his hair back and just...
Also of note, there's new rewards where you get a whole deck for...
Yes, I saw that just recently. I was like, play 30 lands. Okay, that's a cool daily. It's like, it gives you a red-green deck? What?
All right, can we wrap up here? I've got some arena I need to play.
I was going to say, I actually legitimately need to wrap up too, so...
No, that's completely fine, guys. I think we've hit on a lot of great topics today. I wanted to thank you guys so much for joining.
Oh, one sec. We got to let Nicole do her segment.
I keep forgetting. Nicole, please give us the channel spotlight for the week.
All right, this week's channel spotlight is Albie MTG. He is an awesome YouTuber, and he has been putting out consistent content. And it is great and it's awesome. And I have learned so much about content creation and some of the stuff he does in here from him. And he's just a great guy. So you should definitely go check him out. He does a whole bunch of different types of videos. He's been doing a lot of Sealed recently, which I've been really enjoying watching because Sealed's one of my favorite formats. But yeah, he's got some great videos.
I can attest to that. I've been following him on Twitter for a while now. He's a great guy. I've talked to him a few times. Really, really cool person. So definitely, you guys should definitely check out his channel.
All right, and last time, guys, we got Digital Llama. What did we get him to? You guys did a great job. You went out and subscribed to his channel after we, put out a goal. So this time, Albie is at 1,372 subscribers. Let's see if we can get him to the 1,500 mark. I think we can do that.
Oh, that'd be awesome. I'm definitely going to tweet this out and tweet him out too. So get as many people to go to his channel as possible. He does make really good content, guys. I mean, just it's really good. Like he understands everything really well, and he's understands what it means to be a content creator for MTG, and I can really respect that.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Nitza. So I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, I was just going to say, yeah, I enjoy his content too. I mostly play limited these days, but his videos, you can see one of them on the screen there, is he does videos like about the undefeated decks and the new format, for example. And so I watched his video about what decks are doing well right now on Magic Online in the new standard environment. And, it's a good way to sort of keep aware of what's going on in standard without actually playing it.
that's kind of neat. I might need to check that out, actually. Oh yeah, the new meta is coming together.
Yeah, there's some interesting decks in there.
Yeah, I need to get on that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I think that's a good place for us to wrap up. I know we all got other things to do tonight, but I just wanted to thank you guys so much for joining us on Around the Aether Cooler. Mike, Nicole, Nitza, thank you guys so much for joining us tonight.
What do you guys have coming up on your channel this week?
Oh shoot! I was supposed to do something. No. We'll have some magic videos. Probably no cake though this time.
Shoot.
I'm sorry. I've got family in town, so they would just eat it. Yeah, that'd actually be a good idea if they were here long enough to eat it.
Gotcha.
And what about you, Nitza?
I have, I've talked about all the drafts. I have lots of draft videos coming out. I do one every Monday and Thursday at a minimum. Next week, I think I'm actually going to have time to get in a few extras. I also have my top 10 videos. Tomorrow, Friday, is the day when I have a top 10 video, and tomorrow's video is about haste. So Nicole probably likes that keyword. So
yes, I do.
All right, and then Sybin, I guess I'll just say I'm editing for the channel now, so Sybin's already got a whole stack of recordings for me. I just need to get the time to edit them together. So
yeah, guys, it was seriously like six or
gosh,
7
don't
recordings.
remind me.
I sent them all over to Mike for editing. So those things are going to be coming out. We are going to be starting I'm going to be continuing like the Vorthos Bite kind of series, where I'm taking a shorter, more condensed look at a single card or character's lore. I really like those. Like, they're super, super fun to produce because it doesn't involve like a bunch of research for me, and I can kind of just read them in a natural kind of like off the cuff kind of manner rather than trying to get this whole script down and it take 25 minutes to record. So I feel like you guys might like the kind of just more casual kind of videos that are these Bite videos. So I'm going to have a bunch of those coming out in the next couple weeks.
Yep, and we're working on all sorts of new content. We're still going to try to be working on living lore in the background while we get a new slate of stuff going, like deck techs and other lore videos. And, we got tons of stuff planned, so make sure you subscribe to the Aether Hub. And, you'll see a lot of us on there pretty soon.
Yeah, and don't forget to follow us on Twitch right here. I mean, we do the Around the Aether Cooler podcast every Thursday. We try to do it every Thursday. A couple things get in the way, but you guys can expect us to be pretty regular on that. I will also be streaming more regularly, so I've already streamed a couple times this week. I'm going to continue to stream this weekend. So just playing Arena, we got a lot to do, guys. We got a lot of M19 to grind out, so definitely join me in that. So make sure you follow us so you know when we go live. And of course, check out our Patreon where you guys can get a bunch of exclusive stuff. Just join the Vorthos army, join the discussion, join us on Discord. Get a bunch of free stuff from us as just a way of saying thank you for supporting our content.
All right. Anything else, guys?
Nope, I think that's it.
All right. Have a good night, everybody.
Yep, and a good week.
Yep.